so philosophical and there's no way of proving it or knowing it. But I also got bullied in school terribly, especially more in primary school. And I wouldn't say I'm grateful for it, because obviously it was cock. You're never grateful for something bad that happened in your life. It sounds weird to say I'm grateful for it. But at the same time, that does shape you.
My name's Kieran Naidu, and you're listening to The Self-Starters, a place where we learn how to turn our ideas into successful action. And because you're listening, you have no excuse not to get started on your idea right this very moment, unless you just want to finish this episode first.
Where are you at the moment, Scott?
I'm in Cape Town. I'm in Cape Town at the moment. I'm in a hotel that looks a bit like it looks like I'm in a spaceship, but I'm in a hotel in Cape Town for the week. Yeah.
No, it's I don't know how you manage to live out hotels as consistently as you do. Do you love it?
The trick is, what the trick is? Well, I've only learned in the last probably 6 months is you have to unpack your bag as soon as you get there, even if you're there for 2 nights. Open your bag, unpack it into the closet, because just the feeling of opening a closet to get your underwear and not like digging through your bag like that, like a sort of street cat. Then you also get confused. If it's you going everything in your bag, you get confused, like what's clean, what's not.
Dirty.
And if in a closet, I've got I'm quite OCD, but I've got like my the one thing will be like my dirty laundry section, and I'll put it there. But then it becomes better when you unpack your bag and you kind of feel a bit more at home.
It's I admire you for unpacking your bag for a 2-night stay.
1 night stay that's
heroic.
Ridiculous. But 2 night stay even, just unpack that bag, because you pack it quicker than you think. At home, for some reason, it takes more long to pack because you're selecting clothes. You're going, okay, but now you're not selecting clothes. Just everything in a hotel, everything that's in the closet just needs to go in. So you're just doing this. It's quick. But the thing I miss now from home, people always ask me, like, does Mika, my fiance, is it hard for her that I'm away so much? But the problem is she prefers it because we really get along in short bursts. When we spend a lot of time together, that's when she gets so irritated with me because I don't know. She thinks I've never been officially diagnosed, but she thinks I have ADHD. So she's convinced. So like I then get very restless and like really start irritating her, and then eventually she'll be like, don't you haven't performed in Rustenburg for a while, eh? I think the people in Rustenburg really would like to see you, specifically this weekend. Go. But now my dogs, my word. Because the thing is with Mika, I can phone her anytime, I can video call, my dogs, I miss them. That's the only thing.
Did you grow up with dogs?
Yeah, but not really. Like it was always the type of dogs we had was like always like more your mom's dog, and it was always a Maltese poodle.
Always.
It's not like a dog that you would really take anywhere. That dog would be at home, and it's not a dog that you really like play with and kind of go running with or anything like that. But now I've got like 2 rescues, and they're my pride and joy. So that's the tough thing for me now about being away.
So I have a dog. It's the first time I've ever had a dog. We got to London yesterday. My fiance and I were lying in bed looking at pictures of our dog. It had been less than 24 hours. So I completely understand. We were like, look at her sitting in the bed. Look at her in the garden. We're like, she's just doing normal things, but we were reflecting on it, and I completely get it.
We do exactly the same. They go to like a doggy hotel when we're away, and then they post pictures of the dogs every day on their Facebook page. And then we're like looking, where's ours? And then also they're just standing there, like you can hardly even see him. He's there in the background, and then you're like, "There's Otis, there's he. Okay, he looks fine. He looks happy." Yeah, so ridiculous. Yeah.
One of the guys I went to university with just had a kid, and I don't know anything about kids, but I was ashamed. I was like, Matt, tell me, how do you feel? Do you feel similarly to about your child the way you felt about your dog? Because that's the only way I understand it. I can't comprehend what it's like to have a child, but I can understand what it's like to have a dog, and that for me is, if I feel similarly about that, I'd be happy.
Yeah, I don't know. I really, I had this argument with someone the other day, and they were like, "Wait, I'll never know, but or maybe I will one day." But they were like, "Wait." They saw how much I love my dogs. They said, "Wait till you have kids, and then the dog will become like a second-class citizen in your house."
Then I have to wait till my dog dies.
I was like, I don't think so. I really think my child will be a second-class citizen. Not that I would love him less or not buy him clothes, but like my dog will. If my kid does something to the dog that upsets the dog, then my child will get a hiding because why did you? I told the dog doesn't like it when you do that. Why did you do that?
And the dog was here first.
The dog is innocent. You are guilty.
Schalk, do you have siblings?
No.
You don't have siblings. So tell me, what was it like getting Finn? Because that's the question I've had thinking about getting a second dog. It's like, am I going to love the second dog as much as the first? And I have a sister. Yeah. And I have a sister, so I can see my parents love us equally. But I was like, I don't think I can.
That's what they tell you, Kieran. But they secretly both have a preference. That is unfortunately the reality. They might not even tell each other. They might go to their graves with that secret. But I promise you, if they have to measure it in percentage, it won't be 50-50. Even if it's 51-49.
I think my sister wins. I think you're right.
But Finn definitely has a soft spot in my heart because Mika chose Otis. I didn't even go with her to the shelter because I was like, I don't know anything about dogs. She has like really like a more of a connection or a feeling for dogs or whatever. And she was the one that was more like really wanted to get a dog. And then I said, you go choose the dog that you feel a connection with. And I know that will be the right dog for us. And that is what she did. She sent me a picture. She said, this one, his name is Otis. This is the one. And I was like, great. And he was the one. But Finn, I was emceeing a adoption day for Dogtown SA where we got Otis. You know, they do really amazing work and yeah, they're great. But anyway, and then that day we were there with Otis. And I just saw this dog, Finn, and they were all wearing these bandanas that said, adopt me. And oh, he was so cute. And like when I was petting him and he was running around with Otis, they got along. So I was like, brilliant. And then I was the one that told Mika, like, I'm taking home Finn. I said to them, listen, please come drop him off. I think they came on Tuesday. They dropped him off. And we said we'll do a week trial. Because we said, look, Otis is our firstborn. He's our first priority. We need to see first if he's comfortable. But then Mika started freaking out that week that like 2 dogs are too hectic. She's like, I don't know if we can do 2 dogs. And then that was the biggest fight of our 5-year relationship was that fight where she was like, maybe we need to give him back. And dude, if I tell you I was sobbing like a child, like being like a proper child, throwing a tantrum, being like, not giving him back, I'm not giving him back. And it was this massive fight, right? And we went to bed furious at each other and whatever. And the next day, I was on my way to Cape Town. I just called her and I said, cool, I am making a decision here. We are keeping Finn. There's no way I'm giving him back. And another time in our relationship, one day, and when we married or whatever, you'll get to make a call on something big, like a big decision. Then I will make peace with that. But now I have revoked that veto that she has, because she has since admitted that it was the right decision to keep Finn. So then I said, okay, well, then I was right. Then you don't get a veto later.
I'm glad you revoked it.
You can only
Otherwise, you're
get the
going to end up
veto.
living in Yemen or something.
No, you can only get the veto if you feel I didn't want this, but now I have to live with it. But now you've admitted that it was the right thing to do, so now you don't have a veto anymore. But she says she still has a veto. I'll still give it to her. Shame, yeah. Depending on what it is.
I was about to say, depending. Just now, everyone's like, "Where's Schalk?" Oh no, he's living in the Nepalese mountains for 5 years.
Yeah.
The one question I did have up front, and it was good to see that you were in Greece last week, because I wanted. It felt like you never ever take a rest. You were exceptionally busy during lockdown, keeping us all entertained and happy. And what motivates you to keep going? Because you've literally been on an upward trajectory, it feels, since you've started in comedy, since you broke out. You've just been going up. Where do you get that drive from?
I don't know. It sounds, I guess, a bit cliche. I said it ironically to my agent the other day. She's like, enjoy your rest. I was like, her name's Tasneem. I was like, if you love what you do, Tasneem, you'll never work a day in your life. But I think there is some truth to that thing. Like, comedy is really honestly like my passion. It's what I live for. It's what I feel I was born to do. It energizes me more often than it exhausts me. And the thing I always joke and say, like, the thing that is exhausting about what I do is never doing comedy. It's the part that I don't get paid for that exhausts me, which is staying after the gig, caring with everyone, and polishing a bottle of red wine and getting home at 12 o'clock, 1 in the morning. That's the part that no one requires of me.
Yeah.
But that's the part that makes you tired the next day, not the hour on stage. In fact, the hour on stage, even if I'm exhausted, the hour on stage then energizes me so much that, like, when I come off, I'm like, there's no way I can go home now. I'm like wide awake. I've got energy, and then I end up caring with everyone who came to the show. So, but that's normally the part that makes you tired, not the part that's actually your job. And then just, the traveling is hectic. Not when you arrive in Cape Town and you check into the hotel, but more just it's the Uber to the airport. It's the hour wait at the airport, the 2 hours on the plane, which is why I moved to Joburg, because I travel to Cape Town less from Joburg than I travel from from Joburg to Cape Town. And eventually I was just like, well, I want to live where I do the least amount of traveling. Like, I don't mind a flight once a week, but geez, when I was living in Cape Town, sometimes it would be up, down, up, down, up, down multiple times a week. And that was just absolutely exhausting. But even in Greece, like, I was taking a break, but I mean, I was working and I was because I had like I had two sort of, I wouldn't call it campaigns, but like sort of paid partnership videos that I had to make and post and whatever. And then it's like making the video, sending it to client, getting the feedback, posting it, whatever. But I really don't mind that when I'm on holiday. I get, I wouldn't say bored, but I can rest up quite easily. Like, that's why when I'm really feel like I'm not coping, 2 nights in the bush is perfect for me, because it's like I really switch off. In the bush, I'm really relaxed. I swear, like, I don't need a 2-week holiday. If I can just have like 2 game drives, 2 game drives, leave my phone in the chalet, just go look at the bush, look at the animals, like, Give me 2 game drives, I'm good for another 6 months.
Do you have to see some good animal on the game drive at least, or is it just the simple fact that you're in the bush?
Not even, just like the smell, just looking at the grass. Yeah, just switch. There's like totally switch off. And you know when you stop for the sundowner, glass of red wine, looking at the sunset, just clearing your mind, boom. Think of a joke or two, lekker.
Are you hardwired to always be thinking about jokes? Is it something that I'm sure now it comes fairly naturally, but was it quite a process getting to that?
Yeah, now I've realized that when I have a new material night coming up, whatever, I kind of can think of everything I need to think of in that week. Obviously, if inspiration hits, then I grab my phone and write it down. But yeah, I've learned over the years that when you sit down and go, I'm going to write a joke now, you're not going to write a joke, or you're going to write a joke, but it's going to be crap. When you like just jogging or showering or doing something completely different, or driving in your car with the radio off and you're just thinking about random stuff, and then you're like suddenly like, oh my word, this is hilarious, and you make a note. But when you know you've got a new material kind of gig coming up, yeah, I've also learned to you shouldn't try and watch. Comedy works so different for every comedian who does it. Like some people need it like word for word, write out the whole joke, memorize it, and go deliver it on stage. But I'm like, I don't really put in too much effort into a joke. I just go explore it on stage. That's what's nice about doing these new material nights. That's the way the British comedians work. In America, they'll go test material 5 or 10 minutes at a time. You go to a club, try this bit. You go to different clubs, you build it. The British comedians will do like a whole new material show. They'll make the tickets very cheap. So you're seeing a comedian that you like for a fraction of the price that you would normally see them for when they like actually touring their show. And they go on stage. It's very loose. Go on stage with notes. And that's also kind of what's nice, is that you're letting in the true comedy fans, because those are the people that actually want to see the behind the scenes process, and they actually get to see jokes at their most raw stage. They seeing the joke still with all the fluff and all the little side parts before you go, okay, well, this is the funny part of the joke, this is what I'm gonna deliver. So I love doing those new material nights. But then you kind of more just take a story on stage and you build it from there, and you gauge from the reactions what works and what doesn't, because you can think for hours and hours and hours about a joke and then go on stage and then it doesn't work, and then all that time was kind of wasted. So it's more just like go on stage with ideas. You need to be very brave to do that, because there's a very good chance that half of the stuff that you've written down, the ideas, are not funny at all. But you need to be comfortable with the silences when it doesn't get a laugh. But you get better with that as you go.
Yeah, I'm sure it makes you better at riffing at the end of the day if you're literally just going there and creating from scratch.
Yeah, and you're going with ideas, of course, but yeah, I love that process. I love doing it like that. But because you book the date, so then it's like the show is Sunday and it's Monday and you basically have nothing yet, and except a few ideas. And then because your brain is like, shit, I need to have content by Sunday, it's kind of like naturally just working more and thinking the whole time of jokes. And what I like doing then is I like running. I'll go for a run, like a good hour run, think about a topic, one of my ideas, going like, okay, this thing that happened to me as a child, is there something there? And then just on that whole run, I just think of nothing else. I just talk out loud. I run. I don't have my phone with me. There's no distraction. And it's just like you get into a rhythm on the road and you're just talking out loud, exploring where where can this go? Where can this go? Okay, and then like by the end of an hour run, I've got pretty much a joke, and then you just sit and write it down.
And
So yeah,
how
that's
did
how I like to work.
and how much did COVID help you in the process of bringing, like almost refining stories to the point where it's going to land? Because with your videos through COVID, I remember watching them and thinking, jeepers, how Schalk literally has a great news story almost every single day, and it looks like you're doing it sitting in one take. We don't know the behind the scenes if this, you're after 5 minutes or after 5 hours of doing the same thing, like, fuck this, I'm not doing one today. But it was just precise delivery, great storytelling. It never ever felt like you were sitting and pausing and just thinking on the spot. And I'm like, this is a man at the top of his game. How did that help you?
Yeah, it definitely gave me more confidence because, I would be basically doing new material every night, every day, because it's not something that I would be able to, well, in the house, I couldn't go test it on someone. I couldn't go on stage that night and test it out and be like, okay, this is funny. So every day you're putting something out there blindly that you find funny. Obviously, then if I didn't, I wouldn't post it, but like that I think is funny, and it's getting the validation every day that no, it is funny. And then obviously that gives you more confidence, and then obviously you get, because you're confident every day that like no, you believe in your ability, it becomes easier and easier. Yeah, and in terms of COVID, I mean, it was such a unique situation that we probably will never experience again. But I mean, in terms of content for a comedian, there was almost an overload of content because things were developing very, very much every day. There was new news about everything every day. Because people were at home, there was a new trend every day. Then it's like we're drinking tequila with eggs, and then it was the banana bread, and all of them were so short-lived that you kind of had to talk about it the day it starts or the day after, because a week later the tequila with an egg is not going to be relevant anymore. And then you don't want to be the guy that's everyone's like, there's been like 20 people we've seen memes, you old news now. So yeah, and it obviously helped me massively, like building an audience. I think my followers more than doubled, and it was a great way to reach people. And now it's so awesome at my shows, because a lot of people are seeing me for the first time, and it's like exciting because I'm like I'm sharing basically what I do with a lot of people that would have otherwise never come to a theater to come watch me. And yeah, no, it's just it's hard to talk about how great COVID was for me, obviously, because so many industries and so many people cut off. But I've just kind of learned to own it. I mean, that some people benefited from it, some people didn't. I was one of the lucky ones who did. I think the trick is just that if you did benefit from COVID, just realize that you were very blessed to have benefited from it, and then kind of keep the momentum afterwards. Like don't do something and then kind of some spark or something happens in COVID, and then like when we go out of the pandemic, you relax. Now is actually the time to work even harder, because now you've got this, for example, me now, I've got this new online audience that a lot of them have not seen me live. Now I need to get on stage so that they can come see me live. If I wait a year to do that, the hype kind of dies down, and then it's like, oh yeah, that guy from COVID, yeah, I don't know. Whereas like if you freaking strike while it's hot, then people are like, yo, we want to go see him live. So if you were like onto something in COVID and you haven't kind of acted on it now, and well, it would have been like on an online space, and you haven't kind of taken it into the real world. I almost want to say it's a bit late now, because now we've already been out for, what is it now, 2022? Yeah, 2 years now almost. We started being able to do shows, small shows here and there in like June, July, August, around there. So yeah.
And how has, firstly, how do you know how many videos you released? Feeling good, feeling positive. How many of those Instagram videos came out?
Well, if I look at we were 5 weeks of level 5.
Yeah,
So that's 5 times
35.
7. So that was 35 in level 5. But then there was still so much topical content in level 4 and level 3 that then it wasn't every day, which was nice to take the pressure off a little bit, to like feel if I really didn't have something that day that I wanted to talk about, then I could feel like I don't have to. But I still made videos most days after that. But no, definitely
it was
yeah,
it was like you were dropping Marvel movies. People, like literally people I know, used to get so excited when you drop a new video, and there weren't people who I thought were even into comedy. So you really did manage to reach out to a new audience. And did it go international also? Did you start getting a lot more attention from people internationally through your COVID videos?
Yeah, not so much from non-South Africans, but yeah, definitely. And I mean, I saw it now when I went to London. The shows sold so well. A lot of them were South Africans, but yeah, it did really well. And then I think it also made a lot of South Africans overseas homesick, because obviously my accent is very Afrikaans, South African, and talking about what's happening in South Africa and this and that. So yeah, a lot of people in Australia, New Zealand, and England and so on watching my shows. The kind of international effect that it had was probably when South Africans were married to an Australian or whatever, and they kind of used my videos to train them, like to learn South African swear words. But yeah, no, it was great. And also what I learned as a comedian, just like on a side note, is that I never posted videos on Instagram, because anything funny that I thought of, I'd be like, why would I put this out for free on Instagram in a video? Because I can use this on stage. But what I learned through COVID is that some things are funny in a video, and it's such a weird dynamic, but it wouldn't really land that well on stage. Like talking about the property prices in Australia or in London. Like when I was there, I made a video saying like, your property in London is so expensive. And well, you just figure it out, or you just have more of an instinct for it the longer you do comedy. But like when I think of that content, I know in that moment, like, this is not really stuff that would really kill in a show, but it makes for a fun video that will get shared. So I started to, in COVID, learn to differentiate between like, I shouldn't put this out there because this is actually good stand-up material, and this is something that works really well in a video, but it wouldn't really land on stage. And then also just topical stuff. Like, I mean, a comedian can now talk about the war in the Ukraine, and you can write material about that if that's something that you want to talk about, and it will still be relevant for a while. But you also learn to realize that the Guptas getting caught, it would be better to make a video about that and put it out there and get the shares and the views and whatever, than now save that. When is my show in Cape Town? In December. It's going to be a bit like fucking random to talk about, hey, the Guptas have been caught in December, and you don't always have a show coming up like now. So you also learn to like jump more on topical things. And now I'm kicking myself because as I'm saying it, I'm like, why didn't I make a video about the Guptas getting caught? But anyway,
it almost brings you into the realm of satire and satirical news.
yeah,
Yeah, and I remember watching it. I can't remember if it was Trevor Noah who said it himself or it was an analysis of Trevor Noah's success. And they mentioned one of the things he did at the time that a lot of comedians in South Africa weren't doing was that he was posting his content onto YouTube, and it allowed him to reach to a wider audience that wouldn't have necessarily gone to his shows. So hearing you say that, it makes complete sense. You're reaching people that you never would have ever before. I mean, I've heard my mom and dad speak about you. Now that's not something I would ever expect to hear, 260 plus Indians sitting in Durban to be like, oh yeah, this guy. I'm like, oh yeah, Schalk. I know who you're talking about.
Yeah, online is definitely obviously the world we live in. You can't kind of shy away from it. The thing that makes it now tricky to post material on YouTube is because if Netflix comes knocking, let's say in 6 months after that, that material you've put on YouTube, you won't be able to use then in a Netflix special. And you obviously won't be able to take a Netflix special that you have recorded and say, hey, I'm putting it out for free on YouTube, because there's all kind of legal things involved. What was different in Trevor's time, I would say, is it was still in the days of DVDs. So you put out the DVD. After a year, you've pretty much made from the DVD what you're going to make. Like, if you've made X amount of money that year from DVD sales, after that, it's going to be the odd DVD that sells here and there. Then the DVD has run its course, and then you're like, well, I might as well put it out for free then on YouTube and make fans out of this. But I mean, that's what I love now about my Instagram videos, is because I feel like I basically can put myself as a comedian out there, and it's kind of like, this is what you will get when you come to a show, without giving away the jokes of the show. Because, you work so hard on writing an hour and a half of material. It takes obviously weeks and months to craft a lacquer hour and a half show. Like I said, the new material night, that's only one element of it. That's only like finding, okay, what am I speaking about in the hour and a half show? But then as you start touring, the show develops a bit more every day. You also start realizing, I need to tweak this, I need to do this. By the time the show is in its more like in its completed phase, then you only have a lacquer show. That's maybe only after like a few shows. Then you have a show that's like, wow, this thing is so polished now. There's no way I could perform the show anywhere and it wouldn't do well. But yeah, so it's a nice way for me to go, look, this video, let's say talking about the Guptas getting arrested, I've made you laugh. You're not going to hear this in the show, but you'll hear other stuff in the show. But it's just a nice way of advertising who you are, what you do, your vibe, your sense of humor. So it's a nice way of saying to people, look, if you enjoyed this video, you'll enjoy the show 100%. Like, and I also feel like I carry across who I am on stage in my videos. Like, it's not like in my videos I don't swear at all, and now on stage I'm swearing. That's why I wouldn't say it's important for me to swear in my videos, but like in my live shows, I do say, oh my word, and the fucking dog or whatever. So I don't want to false advertise on Instagram. I don't want to say, hey, this is what you're going to get in the show, and then you get to the show and it's something completely different. So now with Instagram and social media, it's almost like you're constantly posting a trailer of the movie, and then the live show would be the movie. Yeah.
Talking about the process of putting together a a full one man show, how much of that is ever dictated in unexpected ways by, I guess, by your audience? So as you test out new material, how often will you be led down a path that you completely weren't expecting based off how they respond? Is that more often than not, or is it, your instincts are such that you generally know where it's going to, how the joke's going to end up?
No, it's more often than not you get caught off guard by something that you thought was funny, but people really for some reason just really connect to that story that you tell. Um, like I have this story now. I don't want to give it away, but it's about like growing up quite conservative, and then I went away with a bunch of like English people from Cape Town on like a weekend away, and this whole thing transpired, and how basically just because I grew up more like Afrikaans and conservative, for me this was like, whoa, what the hell is going on, And I thought it was a funny story. It did happen, and I thought, yeah, this is something I can discuss on stage. But people just for some reason like laughed so hard at that, like they just found it so funny. But then I realized afterwards, because everyone can relate to at least once in your life being somewhere where people are doing something and you're like, fuck, am I just like really conservative, or like this is crazy for me, but everyone else is acting as if it's normal. But yeah, now that story I feel is like one of the strongest bits of the show. Whereas like when I was kind of bullet pointing the show, I wouldn't have thought that would be like one of the bits where people laugh the hardest. But that's what makes it magic for me. Comedy never, when you do comedy, it never loses that magic, because there will always be something that caught you off guard. And as someone once said, I can't remember who it is, but it's like, it was a comedian who said it to me once. It's like you can never figure out comedy. Comedy will always like surprise you. Comedy will always teach you lessons. You'll always have a situation at least once in a while where you go on stage with something that you think is absolutely hilarious and it bombs. And you're like, how? I've been doing this for 11 years now. I would think that by now I wouldn't go say something on stage that totally bombs, but sometimes it still happens. And sometimes the reverse happens as well, where you say something and it's like, it's more of like you weren't even going to say it. It's more of a throwaway, and then wow, people laugh. And then you think, no, that was a fluke. And then you do it again at the next show, and then it has the same response. And you're like, fuck me. Okay, well, that's clearly way funnier than I thought it was, but great, and yeah, it's just fun. And I don't have that fear so much anymore, but like I used to always, when I was starting out, like when we knew each other in varsity, Kieran, like I would always have this fear. I would write a 5-minute joke, or I'd have a new 10 minutes, and I start performing it, and it's doing well. And especially at that stage, 5 minutes of comedy, that's like literally finding a diamond. It's like you fucking sieving there in a mine, and you find the massive diamond. And you're like, shit, I wrote a new good 5 minutes. Yes, hallelujah. I'm still a comedian. I can still survive in this industry. And then I would always have this fear, but I mean, I know a lot of comedians would feel the same, where you're like, what if that was the last good joke I will ever write? Like, what if I can just not produce that again? What if I can just not find another funny 5 minutes ever again? And everything I write after this is just kind of cuck. I still sometimes have that fear, but eventually you learn that the material will come. Whether it's a story that you remember from school that you were like, oh my word, I can't believe I've never thought of this, or something that happens in your relationship, or sometimes something just happens which you're like, oh wow, there's a new 10 minutes. Awesome. So you learn to just trust the process and trust yourself more.
I really do find it fascinating that you talk about almost imposter syndrome and wondering, like, can I still write a joke? Especially for, I mean, you've been in the industry for 10 plus years now. When I look at what you've achieved in South Africa, you know, it almost leaves the question, what else is there for you to achieve? And as you've mentioned, you had a couple of shows in London recently. Is the international scene something that you're thinking of seriously and want to go out and dominate next?
Yeah, that is definitely my next step, and I think dominate is a good word. Look, I don't even think I've dominated South Africa. I think we are still a little bit stuck, and I think Trevor Noah was one of the only, not the only, one of the only comedians that's really bridged that racial gap in our country. But people gravitate, you know, in Afrikaans, you say soort soek soort, like sort finds sort. So often it would be like there would be a black comedian who have majority black audiences, you know, and dude, I get so excited when I just see like an Indian couple or black couple come to one of my shows, because I really I do my shows in English. It's completely inclusive in terms of the language because everyone understands English, and that's why I insist on doing shows in English, because I want it to be a very welcome space for everyone. But you know, and then you walk on stage and it's like sort of your white middle class. At least I've got diversity in terms of I've got Afrikaans white people and I've got English white people. And then I always think to myself, but why? It's not like I'm writing comedy for that audience, but for some reason that's the audience that's like gravitates towards my comedy, and that's normally the majority of the audience that are sitting there, you know. And I would love it for my audiences to be more diverse racially, but I mean, what can I do? I can't try and go, okay, I'm gonna write an Indian show. I can't even imagine what that would even look like. Or I'm gonna write a show, a Cape Malay show. Like, I can only do the comedy that I do. I can only do the comedy that is me, and whoever's gonna find that interesting or funny is gonna come to the show. But you know, I think in South Africa, we are still in many ways still stuck in like, we are Indian, we're gonna go watch the Indian comedian. We are black, we're gonna go watch the black comedian. You know, we are from Cape Town, we're gonna watch the Cape. Even in cities, you know, we are from Cape Town, we're gonna watch the Cape Town comedians. You know, we don't watch the Joburg comedians when they come here, really. So, you know, it's like, it's, you know, so that would be, so, I mean, in that sense, I don't feel like I've dominated South Africa. It's not, I mean, it's such a small percentage of the population that actually come watch me. I would love if I could confidently say that majority of the population racially are supporting my shows. But like I said, there's only so much I feel that I can really do about it. But yeah, in terms of South Africa, I feel like I'm definitely don't feel like I'm done in South Africa, and I would never say I've reached the ceiling, because you can always do one more night in a theater. If I fill up the Baxter Theatre in Cape Town for a month, why the next step would be filling it up for 2 months. Step after that would be filling it up for 3 months. You can always do more. It's like, if every person in Cape Town did not come watch my show, every single one of them, then I did not reach the ceiling, you know. So I definitely feel my work is not done in South Africa. I always want to do more, better. I always want to improve on the numbers that I did. So in Cape Town, when I did Cape Town last year, I did more than when I did it in 2019. Now, end of this year, I want to increase on that number, because that's also a good way of seeing, like, my fan base is growing. Every time more and more people are coming to the show. But I am definitely in a comfortable space in South Africa where I am, at least, how can I put it, doing it full time. I think that is a big indication of that you've made it in our industry when you are doing your art on a full-time basis. You're not waitering on the side, or you don't have a side hustle that's paying the bills so that you can live your art.
Yeah.
When your art is paying the bills, I think you've definitely, that's one of the biggest hurdles. So and I'm busy. My diary is always full, happy. So I feel definitely my next step is, and also you feel at times I can make South Africans laugh. I figured that out. I can perform for South African audiences, even on lineup shows. Now that I've said that, yeah, I would like more diversity at my one-man show sometimes. But I mean, I have performed to an all-black audience when David Cow has a show called Blacks Only. It's a majority black audience, and I've gone on stage in front of that audience and I've made them laugh. So I feel like I can make South Africans laugh of all cultures and religions and languages. But my next step is definitely wanting to take it to that international level. And when I say international, meaning the people from that country coming to watch my show,
Yes.
not the South African expats living there, because I see that as cheating a little bit. Like, you're performing in London geographically, but to a bunch of South Africans, which I don't mind. I'm not ungrateful for the fact that the South Africans are coming to my show there, but I eventually want to get to that stage where all the South Africans in London are coming to watch my shows, but also a bunch of British people because they've seen me on Netflix or whatever, or they've heard maybe through a South African friend, we must go watch this guy. And same with any country I go to. And I mean, it's amazing for me that Trevor, he posted the other day, like, a sold out arena in Zurich and a sold out arena in Geneva. And it's insane for me to think that he just goes and fills up a room of 8,000 Swiss people, and then he goes to Germany and it's Germans. Of course, among them will be the South Africans who live in Munich, but otherwise it's German people coming to watch him. And that's just like so amazing,
I would imagine you're fairly well placed to do something similar, and I think you alluded to it, because you don't just do English shows, you also do Afrikaans shows, and it means you have to put two, similar but distinct audiences in mind when you're writing the shows. How different is your process and how you view the jokes when you're writing an English show versus an Afrikaans show, or is it just a translation of one into the other?
Yeah, like I wrote an Afrikaans show called Schalk Sings Sleg, which means Schalk sings badly.
Thanks for the translation. I'm from Durban, so otherwise I would just be nodding my head.
Yeah, I wanted to do a show where I sing silly songs. It's like it's always a genre that I've enjoyed, but it's not me at all. But I just wanted to do a show like that because I was like, why not? And I wrote those songs in Afrikaans. So yeah, very little of them, because it's lyrics and a lot of it rhymes, obviously would be pretty much impossible to translate. I'd have to rewrite the show in English. But I mean, when I write an English show, it's stories, which obviously the story stays the same and the punchline stays the same. I mean, if the punchline is, and then the dog ran away, in Afrikaans it would just be like, in toe hardloop hy hond weg. But I mean, the thing that happens is the punchline, not necessarily a specific word that is hard to translate or whatever. So yeah, I mean, then I would just tell it in Afrikaans. I like doing Afrikaans shows just because, yeah, it is my mother tongue, and I do love the language, and yeah, I like doing shows in Afrikaans.
Oh yeah, so I don't know if you know, I was on Survivor this last season. I know you met Jacques from season 7.
Yes.
He messaged me
and
told me.
I haven't watched the new one.
But what you, so I won't give you any spoilers, but what you were mentioning is exactly what I experienced even just on Survivor. It was like all the Indian people supported me. All the Afrikaans people supported the Afrikaans guy. And it got to a point where I was like, okay, if an Indian person says I'm the best player ever, I'm like, I can't even take it seriously anymore because I don't know if it's you're just supporting me because I'm Indian or because you actually like me as a player. I'm like, I'm just waiting for one Afrikaans person to say they like me as a player, and then I'm going to be really happy, right? It got to that point also, and I think it's completely synonymous with how how we are as a nation. And I think hopefully over
And
time things change more.
I think it's something that we also a mindset that we have to get over, because I think people feel like, oh, but if I go to the show, I'm not gonna feel welcome, which is not always or most often not the case. I mean, my parents have come to blacks only, and then there are the two only white people in an audience of 3,000, 4,000 black people. And just because they don't arrive with a mindset of, obviously they came to watch me, but then firstly, two things happened. Firstly, I think they were surprised by how much they enjoyed all the other comedians, because it's like normally they wouldn't go to a show, with an all black comedian lineup, not because they don't want to, but because they would go, oh no, but it's not for us. Now they get there and they realize, no, it's for everyone. And then the second thing I think they were surprised by was just like everyone was so welcoming. It wasn't this thing of like, who invited the two white people? It wasn't even, it just was actually what was so refreshing. It was almost a non-event. They were there. It was just no one really cared. No one, not in a bad way, but just it was just not a thing. And you'd be surprised to know. I remember one time on the Metro FM cruise ship, I was performing, and the Metro FM cruise ship, the demographic is majority black people, and there were some white people that had booked before they knew it was the Metro FM cruise, that now they were on the cruise, and now white people were in the minority. And they kind of sat in the lounge, and one time they saw me in the lift, me and my friend de Klerk, who came with me, and they said to us, yeah, no, we're a bit outnumbered here on this cruise, and we're not so welcome and whatever. And I kind of said to them, that's in your head, right? Because no one else here has that attitude towards you. You are imposing that. You are basically projecting that.
Yes.
You walking into a room and going, ooh, everyone's staring at us. But now you've put that in your head, everyone's staring at you, and now it feels like everyone's staring at you, where in fact that was not the case. I mean, because de Klerk and I were totally integrated with everyone on the cruise. We were jolling with everyone. It wasn't just black people, there was people of all races. But I mean, just because we didn't go with like a kind of feeling sorry for ourselves attitude of like, oh, we're the only two whiteys and we don't fit in and whatever. We just went in and we started chatting to people, and it was like, hey, how's it and whatever. And it was a wonderful time. And I'm like, those people actually just did themselves a disservice, because they actually could have had the best time on the cruise. But the only reason they didn't have a good time was because they didn't make that shift in their mind. And I think sometimes that's what happens, not just with comedy shows, with any shows, music shows. Sometimes people go, oh, this musician has more of a Jewish audience, so I'm not Jewish, no, I can't go. It's like, who says? Yep. Have you tried? I like his music, but I'm the Jews go to him, and it's like, no, you've decided that. No one else has decided that except you. There might be majority Jewish people at the event, but I think that is something, I don't know if it will change in our lifetime. but it's also not a mean thing, you know. It's not like people go, I'm gonna, like you say, let's say it's an Indian comedian. It's not like the Indian people are going, I'm going to support the Indian comedian because that's the only comedian I'm willing to support. It just, at the end of the day, you know, we are all primal. We are all actually animals, and animals, the eland stand with the eland, and the fucking springbokke stand with the springbokke, and you know, and you have to make that shift in your own mind. Now and then you'll see a zebra standing with a bunch of kudus, and you're like, that zebra has figured it out because he's realized he doesn't have to. He can chill with the zebras, but he can also chill with the kudus, and it's fine. But yeah.
I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful things will change. I think, especially with the younger generation, as people, you know, go to school, integrate more. You realize like comedy, something that is funny is something that's funny, and you'll laugh. And I think, like with your point on Trevor Noah, like I remember, I think it was the Daywalker. My grandfather was 77, and he laughed at like throughout Trevor's
exactly
set, and he looked into me and he was like, "This guy's funny." And the two things that stood out, I think, one was the authenticity of what Trevor was doing, and I mean authentic to Indian people. So it was beyond stereotypical tropes of what are funny, like oh, Indian people are are shady businessmen. They have a funny accent. They like fast cars. I mean, there were parts of that in Trevor's set, but there was an underlying authenticity of him understanding, I guess, entire race of people. His accents are phenomenal, and that also helps like significantly. And I mean, if you can't have an accent, how do you move past that? I think the other thing was, he had done shows in those areas also, right? And he had almost built up a bit of a rapport, was the sense. And I think more than anything in South Africa, I think underlying everything when it comes to race, and I love the fact that I enjoy politics, so I love the fact that a lot of South African comedy always comes back down to the race and questions of race. I think it is just people are just crying out for a bit of understanding and authenticity. Like if for example, if you take the time to understand Indian people from Phoenix, no doubt about it, there will be an immense amount of loyalty because they're like, jeepers, this guy has taken time to understand me as a person, and he's laughing about me and things that are relatable to my life, exactly as you mentioned in one of your other shows. So yeah, I'm positive, and I could imagine you bridging that gap because you're a very relatable person. Not just, I think, as a comedian, but even your interactions with fans. I mean, I think I've messaged you twice or thrice over the last few years, and without a doubt, I mean, within a day, I always get a reply. And I'm like, you are just the busiest person by the looks of it, but also just the nicest person.
Yeah, I really try and at least like once a week just sit down and just clear my inbox and reply to people. I like having that interaction. It's important to me. And just on your note about the thing in our country, the thing is, what makes it difficult is that we have 11 official languages, and every language has its own culture on its own. Whereas in America, people from different races, even though there's different cultures, they stay American at the end of the day, and same in Britain and whatever. And even though yes, we are South African at the end of the day, there's so much diversity, and in a way, the diversity makes that we belong to groups, but I think you're right. I think the newer generation, it's already different with my generation. We more integrated than maybe our parents' generation. And eventually, with the new generation, eventually it will just be totally integrated. And but I mean, to anyone watching this, I just want to challenge people to just get out of your comfort zone, because that's actually mostly the thing it is. It's just like you're in a comfort zone, and you're like, this is my tribe, this is my people, this is where I feel comfortable. And sometimes you just have to, and in a great way me doing comedy has, for example, taken my parents out of that comfort zone, because they would go to gigs to come support me, which would be in a group of people where they wouldn't normally think to go, because they would just go, yeah, but that's not, we won't feel welcome there. And yeah, and then ironically, they felt the most welcome, but yeah, I really hope it just gets better and better and better. But like I said, I'm struggling to think, or I think about it often, and I'm like, what can you do? But the only way, the thing I've sort of come to the conclusion is you can just do you, and you can't try and be a comedian, because then your comedy will get diluted, because you're not doing the comedy that you want to do. You're doing the comedy that you think this group of people wants you to do, but you can only do you, and whoever's gonna connect to that is gonna connect to that.
And talking about doing you, a big part of the Schalk Bezuidenhout brand is your identity. You're a quirky character. How long did it take you to settle on your identity as a comedian? I hear lots of comedians talk about, initially when they start out, they're replicating other comedians that they look up to, and over time, eventually they settle into who they are and their brand of comedy. What was your journey like?
Yeah, I think I found, like, generally my voice quite early on in my career. Like, from my first 5 minutes, I would describe my voice as, like, definitely on the liberal side of things, definitely on the alternative side. There is swearing, even though I don't swear as much now in my shows as when I started, because that it becomes a crutch when you start. So when the gig's not going well, you get nervous and you swear even more, because hopefully people will laugh at a swear word. But yeah, so definitely more on the liberal alternative side of things. And my voice was this life where it's this new world that's opened up to this guy who grew up Afrikaans and actually came from a quite conservative community, and it's navigating life through this lens, and obviously the way you grow as a person in the same way you grow as a comedian, because if you're a comedian and you are single, your comedy is going to be a type of, you're going to talk about being single and dating and whatever. 10 years later, you might be married with a child. Your comedy, your material is going to look different, even though you are still going to be the same comedian. So obviously my material now looks different, because I'm not like so fresh out of Kempton, like whatever, fucking, like, what is this new world? Of course, I'm now more integrated into this new world that I spoke about 10 years ago, but it's still me. And then in terms of like the dress sense and whatever, I think to this day a lot of people still think it's more of a costume, that I have like a part in my closet that's like, this is now my public clothes that I wear when I go out or when I go on stage, my funky shirts and the jerseys and whatever. But the honest truth is just, that is really what I like to wear. I mean, even before I started comedy, I bought myself I call it like the ugly Christmas sweaters, even though I don't think it's ugly. I really genuinely think it's cool. But I wore that out to a bar, and I remember a lot of people commenting on it when I was...
I'm pretty sure you were wearing those jerseys at university.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then the jerseys became a thing. I didn't make it a thing. It's just I wore it. And especially when you're starting out, no one ever remembers your name. So people latch onto a thing that's how they remember you. So if you're on a lineup, let's say you do the Cape Town Funny Festival, people don't remember your name afterwards. People will go, I like the guy with a jersey, with a funky jersey. Or eventually became that the guy with the mustache or the guy with the curly hair. And then that becomes
Or the
sort
guy
of
with
like,
the porcelain dog at the airport.
yeah. And then that becomes like sort of trademarks or whatever. Eventually in lockdown, it became like, hey, you the guy, the feeling good, feeling positive, because they forget the name, but that's what they know you for. So as you go on, you get your sort of little quirks and trademarks and whatever. But yeah, the most important thing is like a thing will catch on and spread like wildfire if it is authentic. The audience are very intuitive. They will quickly realize if you are doing something because you've decided that you think this is going to be funny, but it's not real to you. You know, it's the same. For example, like Nick Rabinowitz can speak Xhosa, you know, and for long people were like the Xhosa speaking Jewish guy, but that is very authentic to him because he didn't learn Xhosa just for
To be a
comedy.
comic, yeah.
It's not like he doesn't like the language. He has no interest in it. He just thought he'd learn it so he can have a gimmick on stage or a quirk on stage. He genuinely loves the language. He knows Xhosa. He, you know, and he's integrated it into his comedy. And I don't think it's a gimmick because it is true to who he is. If he became a freaking accountant, he would still speak Xhosa. And I'd like to think that if I had a normal job, if I was just like in a normal office job, I say normal now, you know, in what society thinks is normal, but if I worked in an office job, I would still wear the shirt with the embroidered mouse on it because I think it looks nice.
So I mean, it boils down to authenticity, right?
Yeah,
And
this
yeah,
this is who I am. You know, this is who I am. It's a style I like. Yeah.
And Schalk, you know, a lot of comedians talk about their home life being a big source of motivation. Growing up, having someone who was funny around them that they learn from, and or even if it was tragedy that they learn from, and it was a coping mechanism. I want to know, how does being an only child impact and add to your comedy?
Well, the only thing I can really think of at the moment is that probably, I mean, geez, this is probably more question for like a psychologist who can like
You know, a lot of
unpack
people
many
actually have
further.
told me have told me it ended up becoming a therapy session on the podcast.
Well, I would think that if I'm like using my logic that like as an only child, you use your imagination more because a lot of being an only child is like in December. We couldn't, that was just our situation. We couldn't afford to go overseas or like on fancy holidays. So often what would happen is all your friends are away on holiday and you home alone, or on a weekend or whatever. And you just have to find a way to entertain yourself. And then often that way would be building a blanket fort and playing by yourself and taking your toys and creating fun games with it, you know. Eventually PlayStation kind of came along and you could just like play PlayStation for hours. But yeah, in general, you're spending more time by yourself, and your brain is active the whole time because you're finding new and creative ways to kill time and stay busy. Someone asked me the other day if I would have liked to have a sibling or whatever. I would have really enjoyed it, I think. But if I honestly had the power to go back in time and give myself a sibling or not, I said to them, I don't think I would, because I feel being an only child made me the person who I am today. And part of that is being a comedian, which I really love being. And a brother or sister or something, I think can make you a different person because it changes the dynamic in the household. It changes the way you grow up. It changes what happens at school. It changes everything. And everything that it changes are the things that would have made me the person I am today. You know, I mean, there's the question of this is getting fucking philosophical now, but I mean, Elon Musk famously was had a terrible time in school, right? He was bullied and he fucking hated it. If Elon Musk had a great time in school and he was the captain of the first rugby team and all the girls loved him and he was popular and he was head boy, would he now be the richest man in the world?
No, but he'd be drooling in Hatfield.
Yeah, Papa. You could argue he would still. His path, how he got there, would have looked different, but he would still. And then other people would say no, because maybe that being bullied in school was the drive he needed to become successful, because that for him was the ultimate screw you to the people who bullied him. Or who knows? I'm saying this now because because that person was actually on their way to go pump that person to make that person, and now that person didn't exist, but you now stop that person for 1 second to ask what's the time, which prevented that person from killing someone or dying or whatever, and it's like this whole, they're always in the time travel movie, you can't change even anything. Like you can't even order coffee somewhere. Just so stressful. I mean, that I used to always think it would be awesome to go back in time, just hang out, but now because of all those movies, I'm so nervous. I'm like, no, just
you get back in time, you just stand in a corner somewhere, waiting to go back.
I just opened the door for someone, and for now I don't exist in future because of the small thing I did.
Your mom was actually locked out of that room, and that's how she met your dad. Now you opened it and she went through and they never met. No, it's
exactly. So yeah, I mean, I don't want to say I'm grateful for everything that happened, but everything in your life plays a part. And let's just put it this way: now, where I am now, 30 years old in 2022, on the 14th of June, I'm very happy with how things have turned out for me. So I wouldn't, I'm happy with everything.
And talking about where you are now, I remember when you did the roast of Somizi, if I'm not mistaken. Someone came up onto stage and they made a joke about how you had peaked too soon opening for Trevor Noah.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's definitely not the case. Where, looking back from today, at that point, did you wonder whether you could top it? Were you already motivated that that is just a stepping stone for much greater things? Are you exactly where? Have you achieved more than you dreamt? Is almost what I'm trying to ask, or is there still more that you're dreaming of?
Yeah, I definitely feel like I'm only at the beginning of my career in terms of like the bigger picture. And by that, I'm not saying I want to do stadiums necessarily. I just feel like I still have a lot of hard work to do. Like I don't feel like I'm at any point where I feel like I can relax now in my career. I feel like I have to now, in the next 10 years, between 30 and 40, work double as hard as I work between 20 and 30.
Why, Schalk?
Well, because I feel like now I've gained a momentum that I really need to keep. That's just how I personally feel. In terms of like peaking when I opened for Trevor, no, of course, that was a huge stepping stone for me, and I'll always feel like I owe Trevor at least a nice dinner.
At least.
For giving me the opportunity, because I always tell people what makes Trevor such a lacquer person is that he didn't need an opening act. The audience are so warm when they saw him, because when I opened for him, he'd already gotten the job as the Daily Show host. He just hadn't started yet, but he already had been announced.
He
I
came
mean,
back from America for that.
yeah.
Yeah.
From the moment people walked into that theater, they were warm. They were ready. He didn't need an opening. It's not like they were sitting there ice cold. He needed an opening act to come and warm them up. I mean, they were ready for him. So he didn't need an opening act, but he knows what that opportunity meant to a young up and coming comedian, you know. Obviously, the next step from there is going from an opening act to doing your own one-man show. And even if I did a one-man show after that and only 10 people came, I would have felt like I've gone further because, you know, these 10 people came just to watch me. Whereas when you're the opening act, they're not there to watch you. They're there to watch whoever you are opening for. So the next step would have been to become the main act, whether it's for 10 people or 100 people or 1,000 people. And that I've done. And now, you know, my new show, I actually haven't really told anyone what it's called, but I've called it Keeping Up. And it's like my next show after Feeling Good. And it's already my first one was Second Language, then Jersey Boy, then Schalky, then Feeling Good, now Keeping Up. It's already my 5th one-man show that I'm touring where people will come watch me. You know, so yeah. I hope this isn't the peak. I wouldn't be. I know that sounds very selfish, or very ungrateful. But I wouldn't be happy if this is the peak. I feel, even though I'm very, very grateful for where I am now and what I've achieved, and you know, my lifestyle and everything. I definitely feel like I want to achieve more, and it's not about the money. I'd be very, if I was able to just reach, if I can perform internationally to people from all over the world, but I'm not flying in private jets, I'd be happy. It's not about the money or the lifestyle, whatever. In fact, more money, more problems, I feel, in terms of like, now you need where do you park this jet? But it's not about when I say I feel like I have a lot further to go, I'm not talking about bank account, just reaching people. And I feel like I've got a gift from God to do this. I feel like it's my calling. I feel like I was born to do it, and I want to reach as many people as I can with what I feel I've been born to do. I don't want to limit myself to making South Africans laugh or making South Africans in London laugh. I want to make everyone laugh, just literally because I've got a passion for making people laugh. So it's like quite simple, but I feel like I still have other goals. Yeah.
I think the way you describe it is quite lovely, right? It's not a number, it's not a performance or a specific stage. It's almost, I have a talent that I love and enjoy, and
Yeah.
I just want to take it as far. I just want to take it as far as possible. It gives me a real sense of adventure. It's like, I'm a comedian. I love doing comedy. I'm good at it. I want to showcase it as far as possible. Let me see just how far I can actually just take this, and at the end of the day, we'll count it up and see how far we've gone.
Exactly. That is really exactly what I want to do. You know, and I want to. I just love spreading joy. I love spreading positivity and laughter, and I want to be able to spread that, or I want to spread that as far and wide as I can. And at the moment, in the bigger scheme of things, it hasn't been wide at all. It's been in South Africa, not even to everyone in South Africa. It's been in London and Edinburgh, and the world is so much bigger than that. And like I say, I say this all at the risk of sounding ungrateful for what I've achieved and whatever. I just have now more than ever a passion. Like, just when I think I couldn't love or feel passionate about comedy even more, like my passion for it grows and grows every day. So it's just like the passion for it, the love for it, and the hunger to fucking just keep going, keep pushing, keep reaching more people. I love it when I'm doing a show. I love repeat customers. I love it when people come say this is the 5th show of you we've seen and we'll keep coming back. That is obviously a huge compliment. I love it. But I love it when someone comes up afterwards and said, I've never seen you before. This was my first time seeing you live. And I enjoyed it. I really enjoyed it. It's such an awesome feeling. It's like another person that's been added to the list of people I've reached with my comedy.
No, I think that's amazing. And it's generally it's those simple, and I say simple in inverted commas, but those simple motivators that generally seem to take people far, because it's not diluted, it's easy to understand, and it's always, I think, very, very simple to keep yourself on that North Star and on that path. It's spread, I guess, share my comedy with the world, and let's see how far I can go. And it doesn't hurt at all that you're exceptionally talented and hardworking. Schalk, just three short questions about yourself, and then we'll wrap it up. And these questions, again, sorry, we tend to end up more into the therapy zones, but it's are you proud of yourself and the journey you've had, and why?
I am proud of myself. I would say I am. I've made a lot of sacrifices, and by that I'm not meaning like massive sacrifices in my life, but I mean like I've in my life often, almost always, prioritize comedy. To sometimes there is a party that I really, really, really want to go to, and I would sacrifice that to, and it sounds very shallow now to like, for a fucking party, but like sometimes when, and especially because I started when I was 19, sometimes when other people my age were doing this or this, but I would be like working, or I wouldn't go away to a weekend away because I was like, I've got a gig, so I feel like I've made sacrifices in that sense, and I didn't get to enjoy the sort of carefree young life as long as maybe most people my age now, which I don't complain about at all. But in a way, I think that was a bit of a sacrifice, because I started sort of already in my second year, like the ball started rolling in my career, even though I wasn't really earning anything, but I was really gigging hard, so, and I already started, just because I was working, that came with responsibilities and stuff like that. And also why I'm proud of myself is just like I've always pushed myself hard to always write new and fresh material. I never wanted to be that guy that is still doing the same joke for 5 years. It's easy to get into that comfort zone. You write a strong 30 minutes, and eventually it just becomes easy to every gig you do that material. It eventually becomes so bulletproof that it's you can't do badly with it. And but I've always pushed myself to not become complacent and give my audience, almost every time they come, at least one joke that they're like, shit, I haven't heard that one before.
And talking, it's so funny that we're talking about time travel earlier, because this is a question I ask every single person on the podcast.
No, I don't want to go.
If you were somehow standing in front of 6-year-old Schalk, and the timeline hasn't been affected at all, let's just put that caveat out there.
Okay.
It's safe. If you're somehow standing in front of 6-year-old self, what would you tell him about the journey that's to come, to look forward to, that they should look forward to the most?
Shit. I don't. Probably after school, I would tell 6-year-old Schalk that just like it really gets fun after school, because we were like talking about peaking earlier. I mean, it sounds very mean to say that some people peaked in school, but I mean, in school, because that is your world, that is the place you go to every day. That becomes sort of like your be all and your end all, and you're not thinking further than what comes after this. You're really thinking you're going to spend your whole life with these people, And I mean, even when you get to high school, you realize, well, primary school, what the fuck? Like, this is a whole new world now in high school. But then that becomes your world. And yeah, I don't think I would say anything to 6-year-old Schalk, because 6-year-old Schalk figured it out by himself. He wouldn't need me to say anything to kind of motivate him or whatever. I would just sort of sit there and watch him, which sounds so creepy now that I've said that out loud. I would just sit there and watch myself, 6-year-old version. No, I don't think I would say anything. I would just feel probably proud, I think. Knowing that I know that he's gonna figure it out.
That's awesome. And last question. Now that you've been on the podcast and you understand a bit about what the self-starters are, and like it's about people who can take an idea or a passion they have and turn into successful action. Who do you know who you think their self-starter journey would be worth people listening to?
Well, yeah, my default would just be like thinking of my friends right now, but I honestly would say, like I've got a good friend, Benny Fourie, who wrote an Afrikaans series that I was in on Kijknet called Hotel. Now they're making ads. He's got his own sort of little ad agency called Freckle. And I mean, if I look at his journey, he didn't go. I think anyone who becomes something that they didn't go study is great, because I'm just like, how the fuck did you do that? You didn't study. It makes sense if someone studied medicine that they become a doctor. So not impressive. It's like, okay, well, you studied that, so you're supposed to do that. But I mean, he started an ad agency, and he just studied like fucking teaching or something. And I'm like, how? Some people study advertising and they get nowhere in advertising, and you like brilliant, and you like becoming a big name in advertising, but you didn't even go close to an advertising course. But yeah, and it's just sort of like really just jumped into the industry and just figured shit out as he goes along, which is the thing with our industry. Like you can't learn it in a classroom. Like you figure shit out like as you go along, which I'm sure ironically is the same with like medicine. You have to learn a lot from a book, but you're only going to really learn the shit you need to learn when you like standing there over someone. You're like, shit.
I'm sure, as long as they're not doing it whilst they're operating on me, that's fine.
Yeah. But yeah, Benny Fourie, I would say, is a good example of a self-starter, because he didn't have any of the tools, if I can put it that way, that would have set him up for what he's achieved. But he just kind of had a talent for it and pushed and figured it out and networked and worked hard at it. And I love working with him. We do a lot of work together, and the reason I love working with him so much is we've got such a similar work ethic, which is that like we had to do a quick Zoom call this morning. He was quickly helping me with something, and it's like, okay, dude, can you do 7? And he was like, no, I'm like got gym at 8:30, but I've got a small gap between like 8:30 and 9 that I can quickly, but it will never be no. It will be like he would literally be like, I'll make it work. I'm the same. I tell someone like, listen, I'm busy that day, but like on my way from this gig to this gig, I've got like a 10-minute buffer where I can quickly, can we try and make it work there in that gap or whatever? Or what if I set an alarm for this time and then I'll quickly, I always just want to like, I never feel like I'm too busy to do something. I'm like, yeah, let's do it. And, and like when we take something on, we just make it work. It's like even, okay, I'll fly to Cape Town and I'll do that and we'll come and we'll do that and this and that. And yeah, it's never a struggle to do anything with him because it's like he's willing to go the extra mile, even if it's to his detriment because he's had a busy week and he really needs a night's rest. But he's like, fuck, okay, I was gonna go just rest that night, but whatever, come over, let's work, let's do it, let's figure it out, and yeah, I love that about him.
Well, look, if he's ever interested in chatting, would love to chat to him. He sounds great. I mean, talking to your point, the person who I've interviewed before this, she studied accounting and now runs a company that created Africa's first lab-grown beef patty. So I don't know how the fuck you go from accounting to lab-grown beef patties, but it's exactly what you've mentioned. Like I find
is it meat? Is it real meat?
It's real meat. It's taken from a biopsy of a cow, and then the cultures are almost grown from a petri dish, and then moved into like these big tanks that almost look like what you brew beer in.
Okay.
And then so
I would love to try it, but I wouldn't want her to tell me this is the lab patty that you eat. I would just want to eat it.
A taste test, almost compare.
Tell me afterwards. No, I don't even want to compare it to real meat. I just want to enjoy it. Afterwards, you can tell me that was a lab patty, and then I'd be like, "What? That was delicious. I can't believe it." But I don't want to eat it knowing this is the lab patty. Then I feel like I'm being done in. I'm not getting the real food. Just tell me like a week after. I remember that delicious burger you had. Yes, of course. How can I forget it? That was the lab patty.
And that water you're drinking? Yeah, I've recycled that from my own waste.
Yeah. Okay. It was delicious. Thank you. I just don't want to know it before. Yeah.
Fair enough.
Schalk, that's that thing of like we are our own,
placebos and placebos.
The people that don't want to come because they think they've got to fit in. I'm obviously my own worst enemy going, a lab patty doesn't sound nice, but maybe it's delicious.
Schalk, all I can say is thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. I think you really meet the definition of a self-starter, I think 10 times over. Just with the success you've had literally from the start of your career and how you've sustained it, I think is amazing. And we're really excited to see what's next. I have no doubt that the next 10 years are going to be your best yet. So thank you so much for your time.
And if anyone's watching this, please come to a show.
Yeah, please.